Captain Zexhai looked at the strange signals coming from his ship's computers. His crew had been traveling through space for 3 months, looking for new worlds to claim for the Caltharian Empire. They were far from home, in a part of the galaxy that most people called the Dead Zone. "Captain, we are getting radio waves from the third planet in this system," said Officer Nethra. She was young and excited about everything they found. "The signals are very basic, very primitive." Zexhai walked over to look at the data. The planet was blue and green, covered with water and land. It looked beautiful from space. But more interesting were the radio signals. They were coming from all over the planet. Someone was down there, trying to talk to each other. "How primitive are we talking about?" Zexhai asked. "They use old radio technology. The kind we stopped using thousands of years ago. They split themselves into many different groups. They even fight each other," Nethra said, reading from her screen. Zexhai smiled. This would be easy. The Caltharian Empire had contacted hundreds of primitive worlds. The pattern was always the same. First, the aliens would be scared. Then they would think the Caltharans were gods. Finally, they would beg to join the Empire. "Prepare the contact ship. We will visit these." "What do they call themselves?" "Humans, Captain." "They call themselves humans." Zexhai had never heard that word before. It sounded strange, but every alien race had a strange name for themselves. "Very well. We will meet these humans and welcome them into the Empire." The contact ship was small but powerful. It had shields that could stop any primitive weapon. It also had neural pacifiers, special devices that could make any alien species calm and friendly. No species had ever been immune to neural pacifiers. 3 crew members went down to the planet's surface. They chose a large city where many humans lived. The buildings were tall but made of simple materials like metal and glass. Vehicles moved through the streets, but they burned fuel instead of using clean energy. The contact ship landed in a big open area in the middle of the city. Thousands of humans came to look at them. Zexhai stepped out of the ship, wearing his ceremonial uniform that showed he was from an advanced civilization. "Greetings, humans of this world," Zexhai said. His translator device changed his words into human language. "I am Captain Zexhai of the Caltharian Empire. We come in peace to welcome you into our great civilization." The humans looked at each other. Some took pictures with small devices. Others talked quickly into communication tools. But none of them seemed scared. This was already different from other first contacts. A human stepped forward. She was wearing simple clothes but carried herself like a leader. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen. I speak for this city's government. We welcome you to Earth." Zexhai was surprised. Most primitive aliens could barely speak when they first saw advanced technology, but this human seemed completely calm. "We offer you the protection and wisdom of our empire," Zexhai continued. "In return, you will serve the empire and follow our guidance." Dr. Chen tilted her head. "What kind of guidance? What kind of service?" Another surprise. Most aliens just agreed to everything immediately. They never asked questions. "You will provide resources and workers to help the empire grow," Zexhai explained. "We will protect you from other threats and teach you basic technology." "What if we prefer to stay independent?" Dr. Chen asked. Now, Zexhai was worried. No alien had ever asked this question. He activated his neural pacifier device. Invisible waves spread out from his uniform, designed to make the humans calm and agreeable. Dr. Chen blinked once, then smiled. "Interesting technology. Is that supposed to affect our brains somehow?" Zexhai stared at her. The neural pacifier was not working. That was impossible. No species was immune to neural pacification. "Perhaps we could see your ship?" Dr. Chen asked. "We're very interested in your technology." More humans were gathering around them now. They had brought their own devices and were pointing them at the Caltharian ship. Some of the devices looked like simple cameras, but others were more complex. "That is not permitted," Zexhai said quickly. He was starting to feel nervous. These humans were not acting like any aliens he had ever met. "Of course," Dr. Chen said. "Could you perhaps answer some questions for us instead? We're curious about how you travel between stars." Zexhai tried to think of safe answers. But Dr. Chen's questions were very specific. She asked about energy sources, navigation systems, and communication methods. These were not questions that primitive aliens should know to ask. More concerning was what the other humans were doing. Some had taken small pieces of metal and plastic from the ground around the ship. Others were studying the ship's hull with their devices. One group was even analyzing the exhaust from the ship's engines. "We should return to your planet's leaders," Zexhai said, trying to regain control of the situation. "I can contact them for you," Dr. Chen said. She spoke into a small device. Within minutes, more humans arrived. They came in flying vehicles that were more advanced than Zexhai had expected. The new humans introduced themselves as scientists, engineers, and government officials. They all asked questions that made Zexhai uncomfortable. They wanted to know about Caltharian society, technology, and military capabilities. Worse, they seemed to be learning from everything they saw. Zexhai noticed humans taking careful notes about his equipment. Some were sketching the ship's design. Others were recording everything he said. After 2 hours, Dr. Chen made an announcement that chilled Zexhai's blood. "Thank you for this fascinating first contact," she said. "Based on our analysis of your ship's technology, we believe we can reproduce several of your systems. Would you be interested in a technology exchange program?" Zexhai stepped backward. Technology exchange? These humans had been exposed to advanced technology for less than 3 hours. How could they possibly understand it, let alone reproduce it? "We must return to our ship now," Zexhai said quickly. "Of course. Will you be back tomorrow? We have some prototypes we'd like to show you." "Prototypes?" Zexhai ran back to his ship with his crew. As they lifted off, he looked down at the humans below. They were not running away or worshipping his ship. Instead, they were taking more measurements and notes. "Captain," Officer Nethra said as they returned to the main ship, "I analyzed the readings from our visit. The humans scanned our ship with at least 12 different types of sensors. Some of their technology is more sophisticated than our initial scans suggested." Zexhai sat heavily in his command chair. In 30 years of first contact missions, he had never encountered anything like this. These humans were not primitive. They were not afraid, and somehow, they were immune to neural pacification. "Set course for home," he ordered. "Maximum speed. Should we report this as a successful contact?" Nethra asked. Zexhai looked back at the blue planet growing smaller behind them. Something was very wrong about these humans. The Empire needed to know about them immediately. "No," he said quietly. "Report this as a Priority 1 threat assessment. The humans are not what they appear to be." The message from Captain Zexhai traveled across the galaxy in 3 days. It reached the Galactic Council on Zentara Prime, just as the Council was preparing for their monthly meeting. Council leader Mordak read the report twice before calling an emergency session. "A Priority 1 threat assessment?" Elder Counselor Veltaran asked. She was old and had seen many strange things in her long life. "From a first contact mission? That is very unusual." Mordak shared the report with the 12 council members. They read about humans who were immune to neural pacification. They read about primitive aliens who asked advanced questions and claimed they could copy Caltharian technology in hours. "This must be a mistake," said Counselor Hethmar. "No primitive species can resist neural pacification. Captain Zexhai's equipment must have been broken." "I know Captain Zexhai," Mordak replied. "He is careful and experienced. If he says these humans are dangerous, we must take it seriously." Elder Veltaran was quiet during the discussion. She was thinking about something that worried her. Finally, she spoke up. "What did these humans call their planet?" she asked. "Earth," Mordak said. Reading from the report. "They call themselves humans from planet Earth." Veltaran's face went pale. The other council members noticed her reaction. "Elder Veltaran, do you know something about this?" Mordak asked. "I am not sure," she said slowly. "I need to check the old archives." The restricted archives. The restricted archives were located deep underground beneath the council building. They contained information that was thousands of years old. Most of the data was about ancient wars and forgotten enemies. Very few people were allowed to access these archives. Veltaran walked through the dark tunnels alone. Her footsteps echoed off the metal walls. She reached a heavy door marked with warning symbols. She pressed her hand against a scanner and spoke her security code. The door opened to reveal a vast room filled with data storage devices. These machines held the complete history of the galaxy, including the parts that most people were never supposed to know. Veltaran sat at a computer terminal and began searching. She typed in humans and Earth, but found nothing. She tried Terra and Terrans, old words she remembered from historical lessons. Still nothing in the public records. Then she accessed the restricted files. Files that required special permission to view. Files marked with the highest security classifications. Her search returned one result. Terran conflict. Classification level Omega. Authorized personnel only. Veltaran opened the file. What she read made her hands shake. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy was different. The Caltharian Empire was smaller then. Ruled by Emperor Krex, then the Conqueror. He was building his empire by conquering other worlds and enslaving their populations. The Terrans lived on a planet called Terra, or Earth. They were a young species that had just learned to travel between stars. When they discovered what the Caltharans were doing to other worlds, they decided to fight back. The war lasted 50 years. At first, the Caltharans thought it would be easy to defeat one small planet. They were wrong. The Terrans did something no other species had ever done. Every time the Caltharans used a new weapon or tactic, the Terrans found a way to defend against it. Then they would improve on it and use it better than the Caltharans themselves. When the Caltharans used energy weapons, the Terrans developed better energy shields. When the Caltharans used battleships, the Terrans built faster and more powerful ships. When the Caltharans used neural pacifiers, the Terrans somehow became immune to them. But the Terrans did not just defend themselves. They began freeing other worlds from Caltharian rule. They taught enslaved species how to fight back. They shared their technology with anyone who wanted to resist the Empire. Veltaran read battle report after battle report. Terran forces winning against impossible odds. Caltharian fleets being destroyed by enemies who had been primitive just months before. Entire sectors of the Empire declaring independence with Terran support. The war only ended when the Caltharans made a desperate decision. They could not defeat the Terrans in battle, so they decided to make them disappear instead. Operation Silent Night was the largest military action in galactic history. Every available Caltharian ship attacked the Terran home system at once. But they did not try to destroy the planet. Instead, they used experimental technology to move the entire solar system to the edge of the galaxy. The Terrans and their planet Earth were sent to a region of space so far away that it would take them thousands of years to return. The Caltharans then destroyed all records of the war. They told everyone that the Terrans had been completely defeated and killed. The galaxy believed this lie. The Caltharian Empire expanded to cover most of the known worlds. People forgot that the Terrans had ever existed. But Veltaran was now reading proof that they had survived. The humans that Captain Zexhai had met were the descendants of those ancient Terrans. She kept reading. The files contained detailed studies of Terran biology and behavior. Scientists had tried to understand what made them so dangerous. The answer was simple and terrifying. Terrans could adapt to anything. Not just their technology or their tactics. Their bodies could actually change to become immune to alien weapons and tools. Their brains could learn new skills faster than any other species. They could even pass these abilities to their children. Most frightening of all, Terrans had something called cultural memory. Even after thousands of years, they would remember how to fight. They would remember how to win. Veltaran finished reading and sat back in her chair. Her worst fears were confirmed. The humans were not primitive aliens. They were descendants of the most dangerous enemy the galaxy had ever faced. She gathered copies of all the files and hurried back to the council chambers. The other council members were still debating whether Captain Zexhai's report was accurate. "Stop talking," Veltarin said as she entered the room. "We have a very serious problem." She shared the files with the council. As they read, their faces showed the same fear that Veltarin felt. "This cannot be real," Councillor Hethmar whispered. "The Terrans were destroyed 3,000 years ago." "They were exiled, not destroyed," Veltarin corrected him. "And now they have found their way back." Mordak stood up slowly. "If this is true, then we must inform the Emperor immediately. The entire Empire is in danger." "What do we tell him?" asked another councillor. "That we have been living a lie for 3,000 years? That our greatest victory was actually a failure?" Veltarin looked around the room at the frightened faces of her colleagues. "We tell him the truth. The Terrans have returned. And this time, they have had 3,000 years to become even more dangerous than before." The council voted to send an emergency message to Emperor Krathzon. As they prepared the transmission, each of them wondered the same thing. If the ancient Caltharian Empire, with all its power, could not defeat the Terrans, how could the modern empire survive their return? Outside the council building, the first news reports about the human discovery were being broadcast across the galaxy. Citizens of 1,000 worlds celebrated the news of a new primitive species joining their civilization. None of them knew that they were celebrating the return of their ancestors' greatest nightmare. Emperor Krathzon sat on his crystal throne in the highest tower of the Imperial Palace. From his throne room, he could see the capital city of Hegemonia stretching for hundreds of kilometers in every direction. 20 billion citizens lived on this world, the center of an empire that controlled 1,000 star systems. The Emperor was reviewing reports from across his domain when the emergency message arrived. His personal assistant, General Vexara, brought him the encrypted transmission with shaking hands. "Your Majesty, this message is marked as highest priority from the Galactic Council," she said. Krathzon took the message device and activated it. As he read, his expression changed from boredom to confusion to pure terror. "This is impossible," he whispered. "The Terrans were destroyed millennia ago." "Your Majesty?" General Vexara asked. She had never seen the Emperor look afraid before. Krathzon stood up from his throne and walked to the great window. Below him, the city hummed with normal activity. Citizens went about their daily lives, unaware that everything they knew might soon change. "General, how much do you know about the Terran Wars?" the Emperor asked. Vexara thought carefully. "Only what we learned in military school, Your Majesty. Ancient barbarians who tried to rebel against the Empire. They were defeated by Emperor Krexthan and completely destroyed. That is what we have told everyone for 3,000 years, Krathzon said quietly. But it was not the complete truth. He activated his private communication system and sent urgent messages to his top military commanders. Within an hour, the most powerful people in the Empire had gathered in the Emperor's war room. Admiral Kex Thor commanded the Imperial Navy. General Morvek led the ground forces. Intelligence Director Nethzal controlled the Empire's spy networks. These three leaders had helped the Emperor conquer dozens of worlds. Now they sat around a metal table, reading about an enemy they thought was extinct. "I do not understand," Admiral Kex Thor said. "How can a primitive species be a threat to the Empire? Our technology is thousands of years more advanced than theirs. Read the historical files more carefully." The Emperor replied. "The Terrans were never primitive. They just appeared primitive when you first encountered them." General Morvek was studying battle reports from the ancient war. According to these files, Terran ground forces defeated Imperial armies that outnumbered them 50 to 1. "How is that possible?" "They adapt," Intelligence Director Nethzal said. She had been reading the scientific analyses. "Every time we used a new weapon against them, they found a way to make it useless. Then they would build a better version of the same weapon." The Emperor activated a holographic display showing the current state of the Empire. Thousands of star systems appeared as points of light, connected by trade routes and communication networks. "Our ancestors thought they had solved the Terran problem by sending them to the edge of the galaxy," he said. "But they only bought us time. Now that time has run out." Admiral Kex Thor leaned forward. Your Majesty, surely our modern defenses are stronger than what our ancestors had. We have neural pacifiers that can control any alien mind. The Terrans were immune to neural pacifiers 3,000 years ago, the Emperor reminded him. Do you think they have become less dangerous since then? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The Empire's most powerful weapon was useless against these humans. What are your orders, Your Majesty? General Morvek asked. Krathzon thought for a moment. First, we classify all information about the Terran discovery. No one outside this room is to know the truth about human origins. Second, we begin immediate military preparations. If the Terrans behave like their ancestors, they will not stay on their world for long. Over the next few days, secret orders went out across the Empire. Military bases that had been quiet for decades suddenly became busy with activity. Old weapons were taken out of storage and tested. Battle plans that had been forgotten for centuries were reviewed and updated. The orders were carefully disguised as routine training exercises. Most soldiers and officers had no idea they were preparing for war, but some people began to notice the changes. Veteran officers recognized the patterns from previous conflicts. Intelligence agents reported unusual activity in military research facilities. Weapons manufacturers received orders for massive amounts of equipment. Then the first new reports arrived from the edge of Imperial space. A patrol ship near Sector 7G detected unknown vessels approaching the border. When they investigated, they found human exploration ships that should not have existed. The humans were using technology that combined their own innovations with improvements based on the Caltharian contact ship. Captain Yethra was commanding the patrol ship times, vigilance times, when she encountered the first human vessel. It was smaller than her ship, but moved with surprising speed and agility. Unknown vessel, you have entered Imperial space, she transmitted. Identify yourself and state your purpose. The response came in perfect Caltharian language, despite the fact that humans had only learned it days before. This is Captain Martinez of the Earth Ship Times Pathfinder **. We are conducting peaceful exploration of this region. Captain Yethra was surprised by how quickly the human had learned their language. You are ordered to leave Imperial space immediately and return to your home system. We prefer to continue our exploration, Captain Martinez replied. Your space is quite large. There is room for all of us. The human ship continued on its course, ignoring the Caltharian warnings. Captain Yethra powered up her weapon systems, ready to force the intruder to leave. That was when the human ship did something impossible. It analyzed the Caltharian weapon systems in real time and activated defensive shields that perfectly countered every type of energy weapon on the Times Vigilance **. How did they do that? Yethra's weapons officer asked. Before anyone could answer, 2 more human ships appeared from behind a nearby asteroid. They had been hiding there, studying Caltharian technology. Captain Martinez spoke again. Captain Yethra, we suggest you report to your commanders that humans have returned to galactic space. Tell them we remember our history. Tell them we remember the exile. And tell them we have learned much during our time away. The human ships then jumped to hyperspace, moving faster than any Caltharian vessel could follow. When Captain Yethra's report reached Imperial Command, it was immediately classified and sent to the Emperor. Similar reports began arriving from other border regions. Human ships were appearing everywhere, always moving in groups, always scanning Imperial technology, always managing to escape before reinforcements arrived. Emperor Krathzon read each report with growing dread. The humans were not just exploring. They were mapping Imperial defenses. They were testing Imperial reactions. They were preparing for something. How many human ships have been detected? He asked Intelligence Director Nethzal. 47, Your Majesty. In the past week. How many ships could they have built in such a short time? Based on their known industrial capacity, no more than a dozen. Nethzal replied. Unless what? Unless they have been building ships for much longer than we thought. The files suggest that Terrans could construct vessels much faster than normal species. If they have been preparing for contact with us, the Emperor did not want to hear the rest. If the humans had been planning their return for generations, if they had spent centuries building ships and weapons, Then the Empire faced a threat unlike anything in its history. He activated the emergency command network and spoke to every military leader in the Empire at once. This is your Emperor. As of this moment, the Empire is under threat from a hostile alien species. All military forces are to prepare for immediate deployment. This is not a drill. The future of our civilization may depend on the actions we take in the coming days. Across the galaxy, Imperial citizens began to notice changes. Military convoys moved through their cities. Propaganda broadcasts spoke of new threats to Imperial security. Normal trade routes were disrupted as military ships took priority. Most citizens assumed it was just another minor rebellion on some distant world. They had seen such things before. The Empire always won, but in the military command centers, officers studied ancient files and tried to understand how their ancestors had failed to defeat a single planet. They looked at star maps, showing human ships approaching from multiple directions. They calculated the resources needed to defend 1,000 worlds against an enemy that learned and adapted faster than anyone had ever seen. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Caltharian Empire was afraid. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Times Endurance *, humanity's newest and most powerful ship. Through the transparent walls, she could see 100 other human vessels moving in perfect formation. 3 months had passed since first contact, and everything had changed. The Times Endurance was not just a ship, it was a symbol of what humans could accomplish when they needed to survive. It combined Earth's most advanced technology with improvements based on captured Caltharian designs. But the humans had not simply copied alien technology, they had made it better. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Caltharian fleet," reported Lieutenant Commander Torres. "They want to negotiate." Chen smiled grimly. "After 3 months of running away from us, now they want to talk?" The main screen showed a formation of Caltharian warships waiting at the neutral zone between human and Imperial space. There were 50 Imperial vessels, each one larger and supposedly more powerful than any human ship. But Chen was not worried. "Open a communication channel," she ordered. The screen changed to show an alien face. It was Admiral Kexthor, the commander of the Imperial Navy. His expression was a mixture of anger and fear. "I am Admiral Kexthor of the Caltharian Imperial Navy," he said. "I speak with the authority of Emperor Krathzon himself." "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Coalition," she replied. "What do you want to discuss?" "What? We offer your species membership in the Galactic Council," Kexthor said. "You will have a voice in galactic affairs and the protection of the Empire." Chen had expected this offer. It was the same deal the Empire offered to all primitive species. Join us, or be destroyed. But humans were not primitive, and they had their own demands. "That's very generous," Chen said. "But we have some questions first. Why was our species exiled from this part of the galaxy 3,000 years ago?" Kexthor's face showed surprise. "The humans were not supposed to know about the ancient war." "I do not know what you mean. This is first contact between our species. Admiral, please don't insult our intelligence. We know about the Terran Wars. We know about Operation Silent Night. We know our entire solar system was moved to the edge of the galaxy as punishment for fighting your empire." The Caltharian admiral was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke again. "Those events happened long ago. The current empire bears no responsibility for ancient conflicts." Chen laughed. "The current empire is built on the wealth stolen from conquered worlds, including worlds that our ancestors died trying to free." Behind Admiral Chen, her bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They were monitoring Imperial fleet movements, analyzing alien ship designs, and preparing for whatever might happen next. Every human on the bridge was descended from the Terrans who had fought the original war. "What do you want?" Kexthor asked. "Justice," Chen replied. "We want reparations for 3,000 years of exile. We want the freedom of every enslaved world in your empire. And we want guarantees that no species will ever again face what humanity endured." "That is impossible. The Empire cannot simply release control of 1,000 worlds. Then we have nothing to discuss." Chen cut the communication and turned to her crew. "How long until our reinforcements arrive?" "2 hours, Admiral," Torres replied. "The second and third fleets are almost in position." Chen nodded. Humanity had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. While the Empire focused on their ships near Earth, human fleets had quietly moved to strategic positions throughout the galaxy. The humans had learned much during their exile. They had developed new technologies, new tactics, and new ways of thinking about warfare. Most importantly, they had learned patience. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the fleet's chief scientist, approached Chen with a tablet full of data. "Admiral, we've finished analyzing the Imperial fleet composition. Their ships are exactly what we expected from the historical files." "Good or bad?" Chen asked. "Good for us. They haven't changed their basic ship designs in 3,000 years. Same weapons, same defenses, same weaknesses." Chen was not surprised. The Caltharian Empire had grown comfortable with their dominance. They had no reason to innovate when no one could challenge them. "What about their neural pacifiers?" she asked. "Still ineffective against human brain chemistry. Our immunity has actually grown stronger over the generations." Chen thought about her great-grandmother, who had been one of the first Terrans to show immunity to Caltharian mind control. That immunity had been passed down through her family, growing stronger with each generation. Now, no human could be controlled by alien technology. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we're getting reports from human ships throughout the galaxy. All teams are in position." Chen walked to the tactical display showing the entire galaxy. Hundreds of red dots marked Imperial military bases and major worlds. Blue dots showed human fleets that had secretly moved into position over the past months. The humans had not been idle during their exile. They had explored the empty regions of space beyond the galactic rim. They had found ancient ruins left by other species that had once fought the Empire. Most importantly, they had found other refugees, species that had escaped Imperial conquest and hidden in the darkness. "Are our allies ready?" Chen asked. "All Allied fleets report ready for action," Torres replied. "The Vegan Free State, the Centauri Republic, the Independent Worlds Coalition. They're all waiting for our signal," Chen smiled. The Empire thought humanity was alone, but the humans had found dozens of species that remembered the old tyrannies. Some were descendants of refugees like humanity. Others were survivors who had hidden from Imperial expansion. All of them wanted freedom. The communication system activated again. This time, it was not Admiral Kex Thor speaking. The screen showed the golden throne room of Emperor Krathzone himself. "I am Emperor Krathzone," the alien ruler said. "I will speak directly with your leader. I'm Admiral Chen. I speak for humanity in this matter. Admiral Chen, I offer you a deal. Your species can have complete autonomy within the Empire. You will not be required to serve or pay tribute. You can govern yourselves as you see fit." Chen considered this offer. It was more generous than anything the Empire had ever offered before. But it was still not enough. "What about the other enslaved species?" she asked. "They are not your concern. They are exactly our concern. Our ancestors fought to free oppressed worlds. We will not abandon that mission." The Emperor's expression grew angry. "Your ancestors were terrorists and criminals. They destroyed the peace and order of the galaxy. Our ancestors fought against an empire that enslaved entire species," Chen replied. "Just like this empire does now. You cannot seriously believe that your small fleet can challenge the might of the Caltharian Empire." Chen looked at the tactical display again. The blue dots, representing human and allied forces, outnumbered the red Imperial positions. The humans had spent 3 months building ships, training crews, and preparing for this moment. But more importantly, they had spent 3,000 years remembering. Human children grew up hearing stories of the ancient war. They learned the names of heroes who had died fighting tyranny. They studied the tactics that had once brought the Empire to its knees. "Your Majesty," Chen said, 3,000 years ago, your ancestors thought they had defeated us. They were wrong. They just gave us time to get stronger." She gestured to her crew. "Every person on this ship is a descendant of the Terrans you exiled. We remember everything. We remember how to fight your ships, how to counter your weapons, how to turn your own advantages against you. Impossible. No species has that kind of cultural memory. Humans do, Chen said simply. It's what makes us different from every other species you've conquered. She activated her fleet communication system. All human and allied fleets. This is Admiral Chen. Execute Liberation Protocol. Free every world. Across the galaxy, human ships dropped out of hyperspace near Imperial worlds. They were not there to conquer. They were there to offer choice. On 1,000 planets, the same message was broadcast. People of this world, you are no longer slaves. The Caltharian Empire no longer controls your future. Choose freedom. Emperor Krathzon watched his tactical displays as reports flooded in from every corner of his empire. Human ships were everywhere, offering protection to any world that wanted independence. This is madness, he said. You cannot liberate 1,000 worlds. Watch us, Chen replied. But the humans were not just offering military protection. They were sharing technology, providing resources, and teaching other species the same adaptive techniques that had made humanity so dangerous. Within hours, the first imperial worlds declared independence. Within days, entire sectors were in revolt. The empire that had taken 3,000 years to build was falling apart in weeks. Chen stood on her bridge and watched the galaxy change before her eyes. The old empire was dying, and something new was being born to replace it. 6 months after the liberation began, Emperor Krathzon stood alone in his throne room. The great crystal throne that had been the symbol of imperial power for 3,000 years now felt like a prison. Through the massive windows, he could see Hegemonia burning. The capital city was not under attack. The fires came from celebrating citizens who were tearing down statues of imperial rulers and burning symbols of the old regime. For the first time in millennia, the people of the Empire's homeworld were choosing their own future. Your Majesty, General Vexara said as she entered the throne room. The Council of Worlds has sent their final offer. Krathzon took the message tablet with shaking hands. The Council of Worlds was the new organization that had formed to replace imperial rule. It included humans, former imperial subjects, and even some Caltharans who had chosen to join the rebellion. What do they want now? He asked. Complete surrender of all imperial forces, dissolution of the empire, and your agreement to stand trial for crimes against sentient species. The emperor laughed bitterly. And if I refuse, then humanity and their allies will continue liberating worlds by force. At current rates, the empire will cease to exist within 3 months. Krathzon walked to his window and looked out at the city below. Everywhere he could see, humans were working alongside other species to build something new. They had not come as conquerors. They had come as liberators, and the results were undeniable. A soft chime indicated another visitor. Admiral Sarah Chen entered the throne room, escorted by 2 human marines. She looked around at the golden decorations and expensive artwork that filled the space. Impressive, she said. All of this was built with wealth stolen from enslaved worlds. I suppose you plan to destroy it all, Krathzon said. Actually, we plan to turn it into a museum. Future generations should remember what happens when power goes unchecked. Chen walked over to stand next to the emperor at the window. Below them, construction crews were building new schools, hospitals, and community centers. The workers included humans, Caltharans, and dozens of other species working together. You could have stopped this, Chen said. If your empire had offered real freedom to other species, we would never have needed to fight. Freedom? Krathzon said. We brought order to a chaotic galaxy. We provided security and prosperity. You provided slavery and oppression. But that's ending now. The emperor turned to face her. What happens to my people? The Caltharans who served the empire faithfully for thousands of years. Chen's expression softened slightly. Any Caltharan who renounces the imperial system and accepts the new democratic order will be welcome in the Council of Worlds. Your people are not our enemies. Your system is our enemy. And what about me? You have a choice. You can surrender peacefully and face trial in a fair court. or you can continue fighting and watch your empire burn around you while your own people suffer. Krathzon was quiet for several minutes. Finally, he spoke. If I surrender, what guarantee do I have of fair treatment? You have the word of humanity, Chen replied, and the word of every species that has joined our coalition. We believe in justice, not revenge. The Emperor thought about the ancient files he had read describing Terran behavior during the original war. Even then, humans had treated captured Caltharian soldiers fairly. They had offered mercy to enemies who surrendered, and protection to civilians caught in the fighting. Why? He asked. Why show mercy to someone who would have destroyed your entire species? Chen looked out the window at the mixed crowds of humans and aliens working together below. Because that's what makes us different from you. We don't fight for conquest or revenge. We fight for the right of every thinking being to choose their own destiny. A communication device on the Emperor's throne activated. The voice that emerged belonged to Admiral Kex Thor, the last Imperial military commander still fighting. Your Majesty, the Fourth Fleet has surrendered. The humans captured our ships without firing a shot. They simply broadcast the surrender terms, and my crews chose to lay down their weapons. Krathzon was not surprised. Reports had been coming in for weeks of Imperial forces surrendering rather than fighting. The humans had done something remarkable. They had convinced most of the Empire's own military that the war was wrong. How did they do it? The Emperor asked Chen. We told them the truth, she replied. We showed them historical records of what the Empire really was. We explained that they could choose to be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the throne room carrying a tablet full of data. Admiral Chen, the transition reports are ready. Chen looked at the information and smiled. Your Majesty, would you like to see what the galaxy looks like now? The tablet displayed a map of known space. 3 months ago, it had been colored with the red of Imperial control. Now it showed hundreds of different colors representing free worlds that had chosen their own governments. 732 worlds have declared independence, Dr. Vasquez explained. Of those, 612 have joined the Council of Worlds. The rest have chosen complete independence, which we respect. What about the worlds that want to remain part of the Empire? Krathzon asked. 43 worlds have voted to maintain their current governments, Chen said. They're free to do so. But they cannot force their will on other planets, and they cannot prevent their own citizens from leaving if they choose. The Emperor stared at the map. In 3 months, you have dismantled an empire that took millennia to build. We didn't dismantle it, Chen corrected. We gave people the choice to leave. They chose freedom. Another chime announced the arrival of more visitors. A group of beings entered the throne room, representing different species from across the galaxy. Humans, former Imperial subjects, and even some Caltharans who had joined the rebellion. Your Majesty, said President Zalmora of the Andromedan Free Republic, we are here to formally request your surrender and the dissolution of the Imperial government. Krathzon looked around at the diverse group of leaders. A year ago, most of these species had been subjects of his empire. Now they stood as equals, representing free worlds that had chosen their own paths. If I surrender, he said. What happens next? Admiral Chen answered. The Council of Worlds will establish a new galactic government based on voluntary membership and democratic principles. Every species will have an equal voice. No world will be forced to join, and any world can leave if it chooses. And what about justice for imperial crimes? Truth and reconciliation tribunals will investigate what happened during imperial rule. Those responsible for crimes will face trial. But the goal is healing and prevention, not punishment for its own sake. Krathzon thought about his options. He could continue fighting, but the war was already lost. His own people were abandoning the Empire in growing numbers. He could flee to the edge of the galaxy, but that would only delay the inevitable. Or he could accept that the galaxy had changed and try to be part of that change. I have one condition, he said finally. What is it? Chen asked. I want to address the galaxy before I surrender. I want to explain to my people why I am making this choice. The human admiral considered this request. Agreed. You'll have access to all communication networks. Thank you for watching." End quote. An hour later, Krathzon stood before cameras that would broadcast his words to every world in the galaxy. He had removed the golden crown and elaborate robes of imperial office. Instead, he wore simple clothes that made him look like an ordinary person. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, "I am Emperor Krathzon, and I am speaking to you for the last time. As your ruler." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "For 3,000 years, the Caltharian Empire has controlled this galaxy through force and fear. We told ourselves that we were bringing order and peace, but we were really bringing slavery and oppression. Today, I am officially surrendering all imperial authority to the Council of Worlds. The Empire is ended. From this moment forward, every world is free to choose its own destiny." He took a deep breath before continuing. "I know that many of you are afraid of what comes next. Change is always frightening, especially when it happens quickly. But I have seen what the humans and their allies are building, and it gives me hope. They are not building a new empire. They are building a community where every species has a voice, where every world can choose its own path, where no one has to live in fear of others. To the humans, I offer my deepest apology for the crimes of my ancestors and my own government. You were right to fight us, then and now. To all species of the galaxy, I say this: the age of empires is over. The age of freedom has begun." Krathzon removed the imperial signet ring from his finger and set it on a table. "I hereby dissolve the Caltharian Empire and surrender myself to the justice of the Council of Worlds." Across the galaxy, beings of hundreds of species watched the broadcast in amazement. The empire that had seemed immortal was ending not with violence, but with a choice to embrace something better. In the months that followed, the transition continued peacefully. The Council of Worlds established its headquarters on Zentara Prime, the old Council world. Representatives from every member world gathered to write a new galactic constitution based on freedom and equality. Humans took their place as one voice among many, refusing offers to lead the new government. They had not fought to become the new rulers of the galaxy. They had fought to ensure that no one would ever again have that kind of unchecked power. Years later, children of dozens of species would play together in parks on worlds throughout the galaxy. They would learn about the old empire in history classes. But to them, it would seem as distant and strange as ancient mythology. Admiral Sarah Chen, now retired from military service, often visited schools to talk about the liberation. Children would ask her why humans had fought so hard for the freedom of other species.